listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good morning, all of you listeners out there. This is Second Wind with Joyce Buford, and I am delighted that you are here with us today. You know, it always sparks my day because I know you're out there, you're listening, and it really inspires me to work to give you the best programs that will give you what you're needing today. Or if not, you have a friend that could be needing it. So today is no exception. It is, of course, what I'm offering to you today is a unique show. Now, Pamela Gail Johnson is the practical happiness advocate. She founded the Society of Happy People in 1998, created the first 3 globally celebrated happiness holidays, and is the author of Practical Happiness, 4 Principles to Improve Your Life. Now, we have talked before, and she has expanded her joy that she offers to the world by her speaking and by the book that she has written. Now, she has been a Dallasite. Did I say that right? Is that what I say? And she has now moved to another part of the country, which she may share with us. But anyway, she loves spending her time with friends and meeting other people who aspire to live their happiest life. Welcome, Pamela. It's delightful to have you here.
Thank you for having me on the show. How are you?
I'm good. And I'm been so looking forward to this because everybody needs happiness. And yet sometimes it eludes us. You know, life has just gotten too stressful. And particularly if all those things we've gone through, the COVID and then coming back and everything changed. So many things changed during that time in our lives. But now it's all about creating and putting back together a wonderful life with joy. So,
exactly.
Yeah, tell us how you decided.
I was going to say, so 2 notes. One is stress is one of the 5 happiness zappers. So when we're spending too much time in stress, it's just a natural energy drainer. It takes away our happiness. And joy is one of our happiness is bigger than you think principles because it's one of our 31 types of happiness. So, so you just hit on 2 ways to be happier, managing that zapper and finding more joy.
Well, how did you get so committed to this? Recognize that it was a failing that we have that people are struggling with, and just how you change your direction maybe in your life.
Well, so when I started the society, like 25 years ago, before it actually started, I was thinking about it. I was actually working for the Hazelden Foundation in the self-help field. So they're an addiction treatment center. They started out as like the first treatment center for alcoholism. By the time I was there, I was working in their publishing division, and I did work at one of the treatment centers. So I was in this field. I was going to a ton of conferences. I was teaching empowerment workshops at the time. And, but I kept asking myself at these events and things like, where are all the happy people? Anyway, because of the empowerment workshops, people wanted me to start a newsletter. And at the time, you had to do it on paper, and you would go get it printed, and then you put labels on it. And there's a lot of work to the newsletters at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's a lot of work. And it's not like I was Deepak Chopra or something. You know, it's like I had like a huge following. But for kicks one weekend, I'm like playing with it. I'm like, well, what would I do with an empowerment newsletter? And I was like, what is empowerment? It dawned on me, empowerment kind of was when you were actually able to look at one of your challenges and see a little humor in it. So I was like, you know, maybe there was pain at the time and you're like, yeah, like I did XYZ and wow, no wonder I kept falling down the same rabbit hole or whatever it is, but you could kind of laugh. So I was like, that's kind of a sign you've healed from a wound. And So I was like, you know what? My newsletter, on the back of it is going to be a humor column. So for my first column idea, I was playing with the idea. I'm like, well, where are all the happy people? Because it's the height of the Oprah movement, height of Jerry Springer.
Oh,
You know, so
yes.
it's height. Remember that self-help TV, Dr. Laura on the radio,
Yes.
which is podcast now. You know, you just had everywhere you turn infomercials. Tony Robbins was, you know, did the first infomercial king. That was, you know, if you're up watching TV at 3 a.m, they were selling you 7 CDs or 20 CDs to change your life.
Yeah.
But I'm spending all this money on stuff. There's a million 12-step programs. I'm like, where are all the happy people? Like that they should produce happy people, right? So I was like, you know what? I bet they have their own club and they don't tell anybody about it. I was like, so then my imagination kicks in and I start seeing like people milling around wearing Mardi Gras masks, because I just love Mardi Gras. So they're wearing Mardi Gras masks in case somebody came in to rain on their parade. And then I kind of see this banner called Secret Society of Happy People, because that's how we started. Secret Society of Happy People. Because if you were too chipper 20 something years ago, and one could even say today to some degree, although today I think we struggle a little bit more with people pretending to be happy when they're not. Like happiness is a little more trendy in that direction. So we still haven't found that mental health balance, because May is mental health month, so I've been writing some stuff on mental health month, but there's this balance piece. But we were also at this piece, if you were just mostly happy, people kind of treated you like there was something wrong with you, like you hadn't evaluated your childhood enough, or you hadn't this, and you were like, maybe I have, and maybe I just worked through it and I'm happy now. maybe that's where I'm at. So happiness was kind of in the closet. And as an example, if you walked in to your office and said, hey, my husband was so great this morning, he got the kids off to school, he cooked breakfast for me, so I got to just leisurely get ready. You didn't get a lot of feedback. You might get even eyes rolling at you, or like, oh, good for you. Yeah. Conversely, if you walked in and you were like, I'm just so annoyed at him, he didn't get up and help, and he's got his socks all over the floor, well, you're going to get a ton of chime in of, well, if you think yours is bad, this is what mine's doing. You know, like we were in a complaint frenzy, and to some degree we still are. And actually I talk about venting in my book as one of the ZAP management tools, that happiness zapper management action plans. Like I do believe in appropriate venting, but there's a difference of when it's our common conversation and it's what we're bonding over. Then when I'm like, oh, because when you do appropriate venting, you need to make sure you're doing it with a safe person that doesn't feed into it. It's where they don't go, oh, well, if you think yours is bad, mine's worse. Like they just need to listen, because that you don't want to feed the fire. You want to, you're venting to get it out of your system so it doesn't go into your mind as a mental magnet. It just sits there, this annoyance that just keeps going over and over in your head. But anyway, so I started the society. I was telling people about my brilliant idea for an essay. And they'd say, oh, let me know when you started. I want to join. And I was like, well, I am not starting that. That would be a lot of work. Again, we weren't in the internet era we're in now. So we actually started with a paper newsletter that I printed every quarter and mailed, and your membership, people mailed me a check and they got like a t-shirt and a lapel pin and a bumper sticker. And our original slogan was, are you happier than you admit you are? And the few times I've thought about closing the society, there was just usually things happened, and it like the first time I really put a lot of effort, thought into it, was we just got into Happiness Happens month in August, and then 9/11. 2001.
Oh my, yes.
And I was like, I can't close it now because we need to focus on happiness. We had a following at that point, a group, and I'm like, okay, so, just like every time something kind of, I was in a window where I thought about it. Now I have to get some sabbaticals. I'd send out an email saying, hey, I'm going to be kind of offline for 6 months or a few months and kind of think through. I have done that, but I've always still felt that. And now, like Happiness Happens month, Happiness Happens day, if you just Google them, they come up. they're celebrated globally. People don't even probably know who the society is that are celebrating them. But the bigger picture is we're celebrating happiness. And that's, if the world was filled with mostly happy people, and by mostly, I mean people who also understand they're happiness zappers and they choose to manage them. But if we were filled with people who had that perspective, can you imagine what a wonderful world it would be?
Right.
Because happy people, I think, are better problem solvers. Well, we know that at work. At work, happy people are better problem solvers because they're looking for solutions. They're looking for what's right. They're looking for how do we make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does the society get together, or is this, it doesn't get together?
We've never done an event, and it's one of those things maybe we should do at some point. I started a Happiness Unites tour. And so I was going around meeting with different members of different parts of the country, doing things that unite people. This was like, I think in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2017, 2018. So, and that was so fun to go do that. I had a list of 100 things. I still haven't finished it. I had a personal situation that kind of didn't lend to me traveling a lot. And then COVID hit. And so I'm probably going to resurrect that this year. Yeah. To again, remind people like, hey, if we're both Dallas Cowboys fans, like I went to the Dallas Cowboy training camp for the football one, to show football. Right. I was like, you get there and you're focused on that sport or that team sport or the people who are into football. And the rest of your differences sort of don't matter. Like the things that you might be on team A or be on in other parts of your life just sort of don't matter because you're united in that happy moment. Mm-hmm. And I think we really still need to remember more of that again, happiness really is a uniter. And if we bonded more on those experiences, we would come together a lot more, and I think we'd find solutions easier.
Yeah, that's so true about the team sports. For me, they were primarily in my college years. But mm-hmm. now I think for the women, we have our support organizations. If you're a volunteer, you like to support something. And that sometimes it's stressful being in those, but there is also a prime area to create happiness in those groups. So
volunteering is one of those scientifically proven ways that we do find more happiness and we find joy and we find it because it's bigger than us. And when we're doing it with a collective group, even though there's obviously there's challenges anytime you get more than two people making a decision. But that's okay.
Anytime you get more than 5 women together, there's decisions, right? It's a different type of energy.
Right? Yeah, it is. But it can also be that energy that elevates us.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes. So I want to talk about some questions that you had or that you gave to me that we might revisit. So you talked about happiness is very personal. What did you mean by that? Remember?
Well, in my book, Practical Happiness, 4 Principles to Improve Your Life, the first principle is happiness is personal. And I think often, and for women in particular, I think women more so than men, but it can impact men too. We forget that we have to have our happiness as personal, whatever that is to us. So maybe our spouse isn't into it. Maybe our significant other, or our kids, or even our girlfriends. If there's something that makes us happy, we have to keep that somewhere in our life, somewhere in our schedule. And I think all too often when I ask groups this, when I do trainings, what is your happiness as personal? People go, well, my family. And I'm like, okay, your family's great. And it's great they make you happy. But I'm talking about you, just you. You're in a room by yourself. You're at the beach by yourself, wherever you are. what is your happiness is personal. And for some people it's, reading a book. For some people it might be going to a concert, like sometimes it's just meditating. Sometimes it could be running. It can be so many different things. One of my favorite stories from the book is I think he's still in Israel. But he actually said, like, he's like laughing. He's like, I kind of like adult coloring books. He's like, that's my Zen time. It's this time I can just go in and get to be creative and do Zen. Like for me, I love to do jigsaw puzzles. I like to put a big 1,000-piece one out on the table. And when I'm just like in this place, I'm like, okay, I need to go recenter. I go work it for 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. It's one of my, I have several, but that's one of the things that I can go, oh yeah, this is just a quick pick me up. As happiness is personal. And a lot of people forget what theirs is, especially if you're raising kids or your job gets really big. And also I think a lot of women, we just try to, be part of the group or get along, and that's fine. And you also want to support the people around you. You want to support their happiness is personal. One of the book clubs that read my book, one of the women said, it dawned on me, I really ran on my husband's parade a lot. Like, he's got his happiness is personal and it's not mine, but I'm not always as supportive of it as I could be or should be, like I'm rolling my eyes, I'm doing different things. And I think that's the other thing about happiness is personal. We have to respect other people's personal happiness.
Right. Yeah. Then you said happiness zappers, and you'll have to explain what the zappers are. It sounds bad, but zappers are manageable. So these are things that interrupt us or drain us. Is that it?
Exactly. So I put zappers into 5 categories. So the first category, so happiness zappers are the experiences that just take away our happiness. The first one is unhappiness. And I distinguish unhappiness from other things. I think there's different types of happiness zappers. So unhappiness, I think, is the biggies. I think it deals with loss. And loss is more than death. Obviously that's the biggest, the death of a person or a pet. But loss can also be your career changes. And you had a job, your manager leaves, or you get displaced. That can be a loss. Yeah. Your health changes. Your health is going to change as you age. So sometimes it just changes without your permission, but it changes and you have to flow with it. Sometimes it's not it wasn't your goal. Maybe you have an estrangement in your family or with one of your really good friends. You're like, wow, we just aren't talking anymore. Now you don't know if that's a season, as then you will come back together. Sometimes all relationships need a break, but sometimes it might be permanent, and there's a grief process that goes with that. So unhappiness is usually when we are dealing with an unwanted change that we did not plan on. So we're going to be grieving something. And then we get into the other 4. So then we deal with stress, because I don't know anyone who doesn't deal with stress, and there's even good stress, but we still have to manage it or it manages us. And we actually physically become ill if we don't take care of stress. Right. So, and what stresses you one day might or might not stress you another day. And that's okay too, but it's stress is a big manager. And I think managing our happiness zappers accounts for probably close to half of our happiness. Like the better we manage it, the more empowered we are about managing it, the happier we become. When we see something that's zapping that energy, then, and I actually have a zap map. I have a plan in the book of how you do it. And it's really easy. Chaos is another one that when we're dealing with chaos, it's usually temporary. But let's say you have a tornado come through your town and you're having to go and clear up branches and all that. That's not fun. That's not happy. You might be grateful your house didn't get totally torn down or something. Right. But it's still stressful and it's also chaotic, and you have to do that. The other one is fear. I think fear zaps a lot of our happiness because it stops us from doing stuff. It stops us from trying new things. It stops us from growing. I was talking to somebody one day and they're like, well, I don't do that because I'm not good at it. I think it's like playing pool or throwing darts or something silly like that. And I'm like, okay, unless you're wanting to be a professional pool player, do you have to be good to still go have fun doing it? You know,
Mhm.
like maybe you'll go enter a tournament with people who are trying to win something. But as
Right.
far as just sitting around having fun, go have fun with it. You don't let that fear stop you, because everybody starts somewhere. The first
Mhm.
time even your best pool player played pool, they probably weren't great.
Mhm.
They started and they got through the bad times. They learned. So again, whatever that is, if you want to go bungee jump in or fly out of a parachute or write a book, the scariest part of writing a book is the blank page. And if you don't go stare at it, my favorite movie on that's Finding Forrester. So an older movie, but it's about writing a book. If you don't walk through those fears, and most fears are in our head, most of them are between our two temples. Now, granted, if your fire alarm is going off, take the appropriate action. If somebody's being abusive to you, take the appropriate action. There are some legitimate fears. And so
Yeah.
manage those appropriately. But the
Mhm.
majority that are here, again, that's the zapper part.
Mhm.
And then the last one where I think we lose the most happiness is annoyances. And my measuring stick for that is, will you remember what's zapping your happiness right now a year from now? And if the answer is no, just let it go now. If somebody was rude to you and you're not going to remember it in a year, let it go from now. Like if it's the weather's not what you want it to be right now, instead of wasting your time not liking it, let it go now. Those are just those little bitty things that we often I think we project some of the other things on, but we just let them consume us and take away a lot of our happiness. So those are the 5 zappers that you need to manage. Some are controllable and some are uncontrollable. And if something's uncontrollable, you have to let it go. There's often
But that's hard to let it go. I've had some of those challenges. So did you put any secrets in there of how to let it go?
Well, I think a piece of that gets into each of us and the type of thing you're trying to manage.
Right.
So, so it's kind of hard to be super specific, but it is part of the ZAP map. Some things are controllable, some things are uncontrollable, and some things are a bit of both. So, so how do you manage those? And this is where I do coaching. So I do personal coaching for people.
Uh-huh.
If somebody is trying to manage some of those things, I can help coach you through it, because we'll create a personal plan for you. And so I don't try to cookie cutter it, but it is hard to let it go. But I think part of letting it go is appropriate venting. And so some person to vent to is a coach. Sometimes it's a therapist. Sometimes it's got to be somebody who's not vested in the outcome, because if they are, they're going to project into your scenario. But I do think venting is one of the tools.
How successful is venting to the written page? In other words, pen and pencil.
Well, I think venting in a diary setting is always a great way to vent. Or you say write the letter and then you burn it.
Right. Yeah.
If you're wanting to tell someone off, write that letter. Don't mail it. Just because we have a thought, we sort of live in this era of authenticity, and so we all think that everybody needs to know our thoughts, and quite frankly, they don't.
Yeah.
If it's not going to help somebody, if it's not going to be productive, they probably don't need to know what we think. But you may need to get it out of your system.
Yes, definitely.
You may need to get it out of your system, and there's a difference. Don't go do a social media post on it. You don't need to tell the world that you're annoyed with your neighbor. And you may be right. I mean, it's not even about right or wrong. It's just about, and again, that's where every situation is a little different about the best way to manage that.
Yeah, I see that a lot, the posts on social media about loss of dog, people, loved ones. And I don't know how I feel about it. Sometimes I just want to go, don't do that. But I know they're getting relief by saying that. And so I have mixed feelings about it.
Well, I think that falls in that category of unhappiness. And so when you look at the stages of grief, which are real.
Yeah.
Sometimes, so I remember, so after my mom passed away, it was probably like, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. So kind of early in my grief. And it was a little bit of a surprise. She had a ton of health issues. So in one way you could say not a surprise, but she was actually doing pretty good. So it was a little surprise. I remember being in the grocery store one night and I was standing in line and I was like, oh, I'm not the girl at work whose mother just died. I'm not, or my friends whose mother just died. So people are kind of looking at you, feel like they're looking at you different, whether they are or not. And I was young, I was 38. So I was young to have lost my mom at the time.
Right.
And I remember at the grocery store, I'm like, everyone just thinks I'm normal. And then in the almost nanosecond, I was into, and none of these people know that I'm going through the worst time of my life. And this just anger surge because you're just bleeding, you're just this bleeding person. Mm-hmm. So I just usually, when I see those posts, I used to say different things, but I learned after my mother passed that I just usually just say, my heart really hurts for you.
Nice.
My heart just hurts for you because they're hurting. Mm-hmm. They're just hurting. And at that exact, and I also knew when my dad passed, I was grateful that I could just he kind of kept his illness to himself. So a lot of people didn't even know he was sick. Mm-hmm. So posting it on Facebook was nice because then I didn't have to call and text everybody.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Oh, this is what happened. Yeah. Like my immediate circle of 10 or so people kind of knew, but there were other people who didn't know. And but yes, some people, I have a friend whose son passed away in a tragic car accident. And it's been a few months and she still does she's just still in so much shock and pain and all these things that are normal, but she puts a lot of that on Facebook and I'm not sure it helps her.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know for sure. I've talked to her a couple of times. I'm not sure it really helps her, but I also know she's doing it because she hurts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Happiness changes as you change, I think is pretty clear. If we have to change something to create the happiness that we're going toward. Are there ways of identifying what direction we need to go, or how would you tell somebody to move through change?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to own the change, because oftentimes when I'm coaching people, I find that people are trying to recreate past happiness instead of living in present happiness. And so owning that change is really the first step of that. And in my book, I tell a lot of stories about people and their changes and how they had to embrace them, because a lot of the changes aren't things, again, that we choose. A lot of changes just happen because of aging or because we were in an accident. Christopher Reeve is the story I tell. We were in an accident and your life just changed.
Yes.
You get a divorce. Your spouse walks in and decides they're divorcing you. And it's not necessarily your idea, but you're like, oh, or you wake up and you're pregnant with twins and you were like, oh, wow, I didn't know I was going to have, okay. That's a surprise. So my life changed. So a lot of times it's not necessarily things you plan for, I mean, there's some changes you plan for, like you're in high school and you're excited to go to college. Sometimes you get a job at a company you thought it was going to be great, and then you get into the company and you're like, wow, there's a lot of weeds in these dark closets here of chaos and toxicity and this and that. And
yes.
So you have to first really, like I said, own what that change is. And then you have to accept it and you move forward. But one of the examples I like to use about change is, let's say your family has a vacation spot you go to every single year. Mm-hmm. And you have great memories at that spot every year. Having said that, every year was different. So it may still be your favorite vacation spot. You may still love all your family that goes, but some years were probably better than others. Some years, really will have stood out, even though that is a favorite family tradition. Right. So that's what I mean by change. Somebody's not going to always be they're going to grow and they're going to be 14 and 24 and their life is going to change. If it's one of your kids or your nieces or nephews or family friend. things are going to change. Your neighbors will probably change. The people that were there will change. The weather will change. So there's always going to be changes that impact that experience. It doesn't mean it was a bad experience, but it means how do we stay in the present? And nostalgia is one of the 31 types of happiness, and really value the past happiness we had. And again, it's a process, and sometimes we do need help kind of navigating that, because sometimes we get blinders on. And we, have to go with it. I know I put my makeup on. Sometimes I'm like, wow, there's some lines there. My eyeshadow's not doing what I walked up the other day. I'm like, do I need an eye lift? But I think my eyes are puffier because, we change.
Yeah.
Things change. And so, we're asking, for, I'm trying to turn back time, just kidding, or trying to be like in the present with it, but what do I do now with changes? So like I said, things change, and it's how do we manage that and embrace it?
Right. Yeah. The thing about change is sometimes we have to control the change. It's not the change that happens to us. That's another kind that we have to also manage and recover from, because some of them are not happy changes. But there's also that change that we need to make happen to make ourselves happy. And that involves risk for most of us, because it gets us out of our comfort zone. We're like, oh, I don't know how to tread the water here. But the benefits are huge for people that are willing to do that.
Well, in pre-show, we were talking about, I think a lot of the changes, I think we have to make changes usually when we're burned out. So a lot of times when we're dealing with burnout, it's because we need to make a change. And we probably make it. We didn't catch it, or we didn't catch it early enough and catch it to the present. And we need to find things that are sparking our soul and creating joy and creating those feel-good feelings, because we all want to feel good. Burnout is no energy. Happiness is a lot of different higher types of energy. And so how do we do that? And that's going through the fear, the happiness. And again, a lot of times I think people, and I just saw the story, I didn't read it, about the Surgeon General talking about loneliness being one of the biggest problems we have right now.
Oh, I do agree. I think a lot of people are lonely.
Yeah. And I think a piece of that is because sometimes we're afraid to go meet new people. And the pandemic made that worse. It was already happening as we became more online, but the pandemic made that worse. And I think the question is, when we have to make a change, it's hard, and we usually need a support system to do it. And that's probably not the people. They say we become the collective sum of the 6 people we spend the most time with. So when we're needing to make those changes, that is probably the people in that immediate circle may not be the people who can help us. And a lot of times people think that's the case. Now, sometimes they may know exactly what we need to do. And maybe they can, if they're detached from you enough, or if they have a profession that allows them to be, if they're a coach or a therapist, or, they can kind of say, hey, I love you as you are, but I see when you keep doing the same thing, you're not happy. So how do we make those changes to help you there? But that's probably where you're probably ahead at that point to, again, try to get into a support group, whether it's a free support group that you can find with people who can really help you and support you as you make that change, as you create that new collective conscience of where you're trying to go. A lot of times, one of my coaching programs is like future casting. So it's just a quick 3-session thing. But how do we recognize where we are, and how do we get to where we want to go? And we pick one area of your life that we're trying to help you see yourself in this different place, and what changes do you need to make to get there. And again, sometimes it just helps to have somebody who's not attached to your life help guide you. I mean, some people are self-motivated and can do it, but a lot of people need that support system, I think.
Well, just a quick answer here. I know so much of what we do originates in the mind, the thinking. And they call the thinker is the where we really get in trouble. But we can't do away with the thinker because it's part of our brain. So how does one take step one? I know it's probably in your book because I can't wait to get your book and have it on my shelf and read it. But is there a step one to changing your thinking?
Well, and this is where the journaling, like you talked about, helps. A lot of times if you journal, you'll start seeing patterns. So I think your step one is to own how you're thinking, is to recognize how you're thinking, because your thinking does impact your energy. But ultimately, I think how you feel is what attracts things into your life. Having said that, if you think, oh, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, or I'm a victim, like,
yes. Oh, I know so many victims.
Yeah, you know,
I meet them all the time.
Who nothing is their fault. You know, this person was mean to me. Well, if this person was mean to you and you've known them 3 weeks, why when the first time they were mean to you, it's not like it's a family member or your childhood best friend. So like, they're mean to you early on. I think it was Maya Angelou says, I think that was her quote, that something like this, that's, you know, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So there's the Native American proverb: first time, shame on them. Second time, shame on me for letting them stay. So there's a lot of people who play victim, but if you don't know you're doing it, you can't stop it. So that's the first thing. And then it's sometimes as simple as the rubber band trick. So like when you have that thought of, oh, I suck, or oh, I'm not good enough. And even the most successful person in the world, for the most part, has these. Then you just take that rubber band and you pop it just to kind of give you a pattern break. Like there's little things like that you can do. And again, everybody's a little different. So like when I work with somebody, I'm gonna help them figure out what works for them, not just what generically works, because I think things are super personal. But it's those things that help you recalibrate your brain. And then once you do it enough, we know if you actually practice gratitude for like, I think it's 14 days, your mind starts rewiring. The neurotransmitters in your mind actually will start rewiring to some degree where you more naturally notice it. But again, but those first 14 days, you might just be writing like, I'm grateful I'm breathing. I'm grateful that I can hear, you know, like you may have to really like, because you're like, really, I'm not really grateful for anything because I'm just so frustrated with life or whatever, you know, and we all have those windows. Everybody has those windows. So you may be digging deep, but after your 14 days, if you do that and you kind of let yourself feel it, because most of us are glad if we can breathe. Breathing is a good thing. And we can value that, then we can actually then start moving into some other things. So it's okay to, you know, be as basic as you ever need to be, but it does rewire, but it takes time. It doesn't do it just because like you had a good day. I think I saw.
Is it 2 weeks or longer than that?
It's at least, I personally am a yogi and I believe that habits happen after about 120 days. So about 4 months.
Oh, 4 months. Okay.
And they actually say for it to become part of your essence, it's 3 years, roughly 3 years. Wow. So, but like after 100, well, think about it. If you started to try something, whether you wanted to eliminate something from your diet or you started exercising, think about when do you usually quit?
First week.
Pretty much. Right. I mean, pretty much. And then you start making it through and you get through 6 weeks and then you think you have it mastered. You got 3 or 40 days, whatever, you got it mastered, but you don't. And then you'll usually take a detour again. So like that first 120 days, again, this is yogi world, so yoga. So that's where I take it. But when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, anything I usually can get through for 4 months, then it usually does stick with me.
Right.
Anything short of that, I can regress. You know, it doesn't take a lot to get me to go, oh, I'm going to eat that cupcake.
Yes.
Sure, and then the next day I'm like, I'm going to have another one because I had one yesterday. It didn't kill me. It was still really good. So, and then all of a sudden I'm in a week and I've like lost my 3 months of not having a cupcake, you know, or whatever it is.
Right. Right. Well, we've come to the end of our hour, and I could go on talking to you for at least 2 more hours. But for those that would like to get in touch with you, tell them how they do that, Pam.
The easiest way is just to go to the Society of Happy People's website, so sohp.com. And that's, or just Google Society of Happy People or my name, and it usually shows pretty quickly. And you can get in contact with us. You can also get a happiness counter, so you can see the 31 types of happiness and how they impact you.
Wonderful. Plus your book, they can get your book.
Yes,
anywhere, right?
Yeah.
All over the place.
Yeah, you can get the book anywhere, and you can go to Amazon and see the reviews. And it's knock on wood that we have mostly good reviews, and so you can go check those out. So it's you can maybe figure out if it's for you. But I interviewed 60 people for it, so we have stories from just all sorts of people, all walks of life.
Wonderful.
That really depict the 4 principles.
Yeah. Now, you know that I am doing this year, I've chosen for the podcast and for me, joy. And so, can you share with us any memory of joy? And I'd like for you to be able to say a little bit more about where did you feel it in your body if you experienced the joy?
Well, I think I'll do a recent one, because if you've written a book and you've gone through this whole process of writing a book, it's super personal. It's like your baby. And so I think for me, when you have, so you let people read it or people buy it that know you, and they say stuff. But when somebody who doesn't, like, I got an email in the last month anyway, from a woman who said, I probably bought 25 copies of your book to give out.
Yeah,
and
wonderful.
She's part of the society, but I don't really know her. Like, she's not like in my friend circle or something that's going to give me a compliment. So like when you read that, and you read that people had that it impacted them. And even when I go to read the reviews sometimes, like when you read what impacted somebody, it makes my heart just, kind of pitter patter, because I know I'm helping somebody. And I think that's one of my greatest sources of joy, is anytime I'm helping make somebody's life better, because when I make somebody's life better, then I think it makes the world better. And I have lots of those experiences, but this past year with the book, that piece, like I said, especially when it's from a stranger or someone I don't know, when I read it, like, I don't know who that is. Yay. Because your friends are always like, okay, maybe they're just being nice.
Yes.
To be nice. But that is just, I think I glow when that happens.
Yeah. That would be a very proud moment. Definitely to hear those and read those. Now you also do speaking for organizations. So anybody that is looking for a motivational speaker, which we all want for our organizations, I think Patricia would be a wonderful guest to have on your show. Pamela, how about going with Pamela instead of Patricia? Yeah. She'll respond much faster.
Yeah, and I help workplaces create more engaged environment work. So we help workplaces, raise their energy level, so more employees are happy, and we have happier cultures, and then organizations as well.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this time with you. It's always a special treat to have a partner that's in the development world come on Discovery Science Place. I mean, come on to Second Wind. Discovery Science Place was a children's museum that I'm working with here in Tyler, Texas. So anyway, I just thank you for saying yes and coming on the show with me today. So if you'll excuse me a minute, I want to say goodbye to my listeners, and then I'll be back to you.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Now, This is a wonderful show. Did I prove it? Did not Pamela prove it to you? She's amazing in her coaching and her speaking. She would be a wonderful person to have at one of your functions or in your life. So I encourage you to think about those issues that you're needing support and help with. Maybe Pamela is the answer for you. So be sure to share with your friends about the show. Let them be the judge by sending her information to somebody. They can be the judge if Pamela is the right person for them. So I encourage you this week to reflect on the show as you listen to it, if you listen to it again, and you go to the website to get support for Pamela's work. So thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for being here today.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.